Back here in CBS Sports HQ, where it's Combine Week, and we're continuing to go over the biggest needs for each team in the league. Now it's time to turn our focus to the NFC South. Down the stretch, it was a two-team race between the Falcons and Bucs, but the Bucs won the division. However, were bounced in the wild card round at the hand of the Washington Commanders. So how does each team begin to really reset, starting with the draft? For the answer, we welcome back in our NFL experts. It's Will Brinson and John Breech. Guys, let's go ahead and start with the Saints here. There's work to be done. New head coach and Kellen Moore, they have the worst cap space situation right now in the league. Chase Young could find a new home come free agency. So how do they find some gems in the NFL draft? Will, I'll let you start.
Yeah, I mean, look, you need to roll back the clock and have a 2017 draft if you're the Saints, where they basically went for this 7-10 team and just found Ryan Ramczyk, Marshawn Lattimore, Alvin Kamara. I mean, you got to hit on a lot of stuff. The problem is, as you point out, Jordan, their cap space is a mess. They've said they're going to be aggressive in free agency. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I think they really need to focus in on trying to find some edge rush help here. Chase Young gone, Cameron Jordan going to be 36. I mean, he's getting up there in what is probably ends up being a Hall of Fame career, and you just haven't had a lot of success at that position in recent years in the draft. They've whiffed on some higher picks at the edge rusher position. So you got a lot of talent there, and you see that meat too. Once you get outside the sort of the top 10, you start to see a lot of names on this list that we have at CBSSports.com, all the way down to like a Landon Jackson, those sort of guys, where they're going to be very variable in terms of where they go in the draft after you get outside that top 15. So I think the Saints in particular look like a team that could scoop up some edge rush talent, either with the first round pick, maybe even with their first two picks.
Yeah, Brinson, we are absolutely on the same page here. I think edge rush makes the most sense. And as you said, they are so far over the salary cap. They really do need to hit a few home runs in this draft, because when you are that far over, that's how you build your roster cheaply, is by getting good players in the draft. And it's not just Chase Young. You also have Peyton Turner, who could possibly be leaving in free agency. So you kind of have this gaping hole there at the edge rush spot. And so you do need to add depth there. And so all eyes are going to be on Kellen Moore, but really it's Brandon Staley, the new defensive coordinator, who is going to have all the pressure on him this year. Because you look at what this defense did in 2024, they gave up the second most rushing yards in the NFL. They gave up the sixth most passing yards in the NFL. So you absolutely have to do something. Maybe if you don't go edge, you could go corner, because you have Paulson Adebo, who's going to be a free agent. And so you're going to need help there. But I do think the Saints will probably best serve to draft a defensive player with that 9th overall pick.
All right, let's get to a defense that didn't do much in 2024. That's the Carolina Panthers. His team's defense ranked dead last in almost every single key metric this past season. So I don't even know, John, if it's really a question. I mean, does the entire focus for the Panthers need to be on defense here?
Absolutely, Jordan. You just hit the nail on the head. This was the worst defense in the NFL last year. They gave up the most yards per game. They gave up the most points per game. So I don't think they can really go wrong as long as they draft a defensive player. Maybe you get a pass rusher kind of pair with Derek Brown and Jadeveon Clowney. You absolutely could use some help there. They're going to be losing Mike Jackson in free agency. That's a cornerback, so you could stand to draft a corner if you are the Carolina Panthers. And then maybe you get a defensive tackle just so you help your pass rushers take some pressure off of them. So they need help at every layer of their defense. So I don't think they can go wrong by drafting any defensive player. Go defense. And I do know that maybe you think about getting Bryce Young some help at receiver, but I think the Panthers really need to focus on improving their defense in the first round of the draft.
Yeah, I thought I was being too broad when I was going to say defensive line and just throw out either defensive tackle or edge rusher. Turns out, nope, not at all. Breech is going any defensive player, and he's not wrong. This Panthers defense is terrible, or was terrible. Hopefully it gets better. I think Mason Graham could make a lot of sense for them. It depends on what they really need to figure out what they want to do and how they want to attack things schematically and how they want to build out that defense. Do you want to pair somebody with Derek Brown in the interior and maybe make like easier for your edge rushers? Do you think there's a true, I think to me, they need to get the front four shored up before anything else, because that secondary is going to be, it's worthless if they can't stop the run or can't put some pressure on the quarterback. You just see it like over and over again. They would get gashed in the run and then people would just pass on them. So I'm suggesting you go either defensive tackle or edge rusher here for the Panthers and really, really lean into defense in this draft.
Yeah, we might recommend them repeat what they did in 2020. As you know, the Panthers were the first team in the league to use all 7 picks on defense. So they've gone down this route before. It might not be a bad idea to repeat what happened in 2020. Let's go ahead and get to a team that tried to give the Buccaneers a run for their money. That's the Atlanta Falcons. Down the stretch, came up short, have now missed the postseason the past 7 seasons. So, Will, how do the Falcons try to get to that next step, starting with the NFL draft?
Well, you talk about a team that needs to draft defense. I mean, like the Falcons didn't even send any offensive coaches to the combine. That's how hell-bent they are on drafting defense. They're like, nah, y'all go like practice throwing, having guys throw the football on the practice field. Only defensive guys allowed at the combine. We're not even going to look at offensive guys in this draft. That's how bad the Falcons are in terms of their defensive needs. But I think edge rusher, again, I mean, like we're sort of repeating it here, but I mean, it's just a common theme for this division. Edge rusher is really, really important for the Falcons. Throughout the entire year, they would get in these situations where the offense would maybe do enough to keep them in the game, and the defense just simply could not get pressure on the opposing quarterback. I think the Atlanta Falcons, it is paramount that they draft an edge rusher to develop to be their blue chip pass rusher in this draft.
Yeah, Brinson, I absolutely agree with you there. But the problem is they're the 15th overall pick. We just said the Saints and Panthers both need pass rush help, and they are picking ahead of the Saints, so that is not good for Atlanta. But look, this team had the 2nd fewest sacks in the NFL last year. Matthew Judon's about to hit free agency, and then you have some aging veterans there with David Onyemata and Grady Jarrett. So you got to do something with that front four, and pass rush makes the most sense. So I think the Falcons do need to look for an edge rusher at 15th overall.
All right, lastly, let's get to the Bucs here. They made the postseason despite all of the devastating injuries that really plagued this team. Mid-season, Godwin could become a free agent. We know it's the final contract year for Mike Evans. Will, what do the Bucs need?
Yeah, I mean, you can make the case, Jordan, if you wanted to, that wide receiver is a position the Bucs could attack here. They've said repeatedly they want to get Chris Godwin back. They're doing some contractual stuff that indicates that that is really making it obvious that they want to get him back. But he's going to have plenty of suitors in free agency. And Jalen McMillan was awesome down the stretch. I mean, so I think, you've already drafted a receiver there. For me, I'm looking at just sort of the losses that they have and the needs that they have on this team. And I think, again, I mean, was good life for a quarterback in the NFC South. The Bucs need some edge rush help as well. They should also look at linebacker. You can sort of blend those depending on what kind of player it is and how you want to have him operate in Todd Bowles' scheme. But I think edge rusher, getting pressure on the quarterback, a critical component for the Bucs bouncing back and continuing to keep their run going in the NFC South.
Brinson, we should clearly be running all of these NFC South teams because we're on the same page once again. Look, if the Buccaneers re-sign Chris Godwin, they don't need receiver. But if they don't and he leaves in free agency, I think you have to look at receivers. So let's say he does re-sign, though. As Brinson said, the Buccaneers are very focused on making that happen. Then I do think linebacker is probably the spot you need to go. You look at who could be leaving in free agency: Levante David, Anthony Nelson, Shaq Barrett. So if you get either linebacker or pass rushing help, I think that would make the most sense for the Buccaneers at 19th overall.
All right, gentlemen, we'll leave it there. Incredible insight all week long. That'll do it for us here on CBS Sports HQ. Will Brinson and John Breech with all of the biggest needs for each team in the NFL as the scouting combine continues from Indy. Here's a look at the odds to win the Super Bowl among the NFC South teams. Buccaneers currently with the best odds. We'll need to address some needs, though, on the defensive side of the ball to get it done.